Hey, welcome back. This is John Waddick. Got a great show for you today in Chapter 7 where you're going to learn how to use the graphing functions in LabView and also learn some cool things about property nodes. So let's get started in Tutorial 7.1. Now we've got some new things here called the waveform chart. And the waveform chart comes in three different varieties. So to get started, what you want to do is to place a waveform chart onto your front panel. So let me just show you how to do that. So you just right click over here in the front panel and you go to graph and you're going to just pick the first one, waveform chart. Okay, you come in with a waveform chart. It has a legend. Now if we're just going to plot one single thing, we really don't need a legend, so you can always right click visible items and plot legend. If we were plotting more than one set of data on this, we should have a legend. So I get rid of that. Amplitude, as the directions tell you, we want to change that so it goes from -1 to +1. And we're going to right click. We're going to go to properties. That's going to come up and we're going to go to scale. And instead of going from 0 to 100, we are going to put, well, that's your X scale. So we got to pull this down and we're going to go to the amplitude scale. We want to take that off of auto scaling, put it -1 to +1. On the X scale, we'll just leave it as it is because every time this runs, you're going to see that's just going to update. So once we get that, we say we like it. We'll put OK. Now notice down here on these tick labels, when the major tick marks and markers are all black, you're not going to see any grids. Okay, so we're just going to put OK. Notice it changes it from 1 to -1. Up here, you can come up here to the chart. We can expand this a little bit and just add to the writing. So this first one is going to be a strip chart. Okay, these are different update modes. Now if it disappeared on you, you got to go this way. That's kind of unruly why it does that. Alright, so there's different update modes. So update modes, you go right click and there's a few ways to do it. I think you can do it here, but let's go down to properties. That way you just learn to always go to properties. All right, in the appearance, there's this thing right over here, the update mode. Right now I have strip chart. So we're going to create one that's a scope chart and a sweep chart. All right, so first one's just going to be a strip chart. Now once you have this one kind of scaled the way you like, you can make another one just by hitting Control, left click on it, drag over, and then you have all those properties. You know, we got rid of the legend. We've got the -1 to 1. Now if we want to change this second one to a scope chart, we'll just change this to the word scope, and then we're going to right click, we go to properties, we'll go to the appearance tab. Now be careful up here on the properties because there's lots of properties. So up here on the right, you know, you have other things you can go to, including security. Now if you're out here on security and you say, well, where is appearance? I don't see it. Well, just remember it's a long list up here and you have to come back to it. All right, appearance first thing. So the second one would be a scope chart. Well, you get the idea. And then you can make one that has a sweep chart. All right, so we're going to get rid of all this, and we have a for loop. You're going to do 200 pi. That's how many data points you're going to create. We have this integrator or iterator I, which starts at 0 and then increments by 1 every time. So this is going to go through a whole bunch of different values assigned. Now what these charts do is they take the values as they're produced and plot them with equal spacing on the x-axis. All right, so as long as the time frame is the same between each data point, you'll get equal spacing as we would expect. All right, you know how to make a for loop by now. I just want to remind you, how do you get this pi? Well, right click, you can go to the numeric keyboard, you go down here to math constants, and there's pi. All right. The sine function, that's one you might have forgotten where to get. You can right click. You're going to go to mathematics, elementary, and trigonometric. Okay. Everything else you should be able to find. Now, I want you to run this at least 3 times. So let's take a look here. And if we run this, I'm going to run it first once. Okay. Look at the beautiful sweeping. They all look the same except the sweep chart. Sweep chart has this red line, but so far they all look identical. How they change is when we keep pouring data in to when it goes past the end of the graph. Then the things change. The strip chart just keeps going, gets rid of the previous stuff, the old stuff, and then just keeps doing the new stuff and kind of goes, it looks like it's going left to right. The scope chart, once it gets to the end, it resets. And then the sweep chart, as you can see, just keeps updating new things to the left of the red line and erases things to the right. So, you can just run this a little bit. Now that you did all the work to create this VI, you just want to watch it go a few times. So that's the only difference. They all basically do the same thing. It's just how do they update once they get back to the end. All right, that's all there is to tutorial 7.1. So hopefully you'll be able to answer the questions. Which are what's the difference between a strip, scope, and sweep chart. And notice that there's no X data sent to any of these charts. So these charts just plot the data with equal spacing between every point that it receives. This is actually a lot like a line graph in Excel. So let's close this one, and we'll quickly go over to our next one, which is tutorial 7.2. I've got that all ready to go. Now in this one, let's tile left, right, and look at the block diagram for a second. All right. First off, I should have visible labels on everything, and I do not. I'm a bad instructor here. I should have this on all of them because your instructors are going to be looking for all of this. All right, you're going to create a for loop. You get sine, cosine, tangent. Now, if we want to put all those things on a single chart, then what we're going to have to do is do this thing called bundling. So I guess bundling would be kind of like the router that you might have for your home computer network. It allows multiple things to connect, and then it sends those 3 things all together at one time. So I don't know, magic happens in this bundle. I don't know how 3 different functions can come in and then all of a sudden we get this all traveling on the same wire. I don't know, it's just too scary. Okay, so I think you can create all this waveform chart you've done. So let's come on over here. Now what's the difference? Let me just expand this. A chart with overlay versus stacked, and how do you change it? Okay, well, once you get the waveform chart, and you're going to make 2 copies of it. Remember, you hit Control, you drag it over, you get another copy. So this one is already in what's called an overlay. That means it's going to put all the values into the same graph. Now, you want to make sure you have a legend here. So visible item, you definitely need a plot legend. All right, if you want to change the color of any of these, you can right click, you can go to color, you can change the line style, line width, all that can be changed by just right clicking up here in the legend. Now let's get to the idea of overlay versus stacked. So we're going to go right click, and down in here it has a note, just stack plots. So if you stack plots, that's going to stack. I don't want to stack it. So let's come on over here. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to come down here and it says stack plots. All right, now once you do that, you got to make it a little bit bigger because now you've got the different amplitudes. Just to make this look a little bit better, we have sine, cosine, and tangent. But I don't believe I'm going to require you to do that. So although we really should. So let me just get rid of this extra stack plot I've got over here. Okay, and let's tile left, right. So the only new thing we've got over here is this bundling. So let me just show you where to find that. So it's in right-click, cluster, class, and variant, and there's one called bundle. All right, so you bring it in. It comes with a default of 2 inputs. If you want more than 2, you just drag it down, you can get 3. Okay, the right side is the output of the cluster. The 3 things on the left would be your inputs. Okay, remember, you use something like this, nobody knows what that is. You got to right click, show me a label, so we know that it's bundled. Okay. All right, now once we got this bundled, we've got sine, cosine, and this inverse hyperbolic sine. Okay, so let me just tile left, right nicely. So let's go ahead and just make this a little bit bigger, and we'll run this. Okay, so notice the overlay is putting all the data onto one. The stacked is putting them separately. The hyperbolic thing is going crazy there. And this is currently in a strip chart here. So just going left to right, putting equal spacing between the points. So there it is. That's not a hard VI. You're going to run that. Hopefully you'll be able to answer the questions in there. How do you get a legend, which is, remember, easy to get a legend. You just right click visible items on your chart and legend is right there. I've got a plot legend. We can also put a scale legend. I don't know what that is, but I don't know, it's in there. Let's not worry about that. Let's just close this down. I'm going to edit, undo, and I'm going to close that. All right, so let's gonna save that, and we can now move to the next tutorial, which is 7.3. So we're making pretty good progress here. I hope that you're learning, finding value added. I'm going tutorial 7.3. So let me go and show you what's here. I'm going to right click visible items. Remember, I should have that. This is a while loop, just to remind you. So you're going to have the loop condition. You're going to put a stop button, wait. All right, now this new thing, basic function generator. Okay, that's the new thing. And also we have this little thing disabled. What's that all about? All right, let's see where we're going to start. We have to find this basic function generator. This is a super it's versatile sub-VI. Okay, so we're going to find that by right-clicking out here in the block diagram. And you can search, you might think, well, it's waveform generator. Maybe it's in here. And I haven't seen waveform in there. So after doing some searching around so that you wouldn't have to, see, I'm looking out for you. You have to expand this down here, the functions palette, and you're going to go to signal processing right here. And then you have waveform generation, and you're going to take the basic waveform generator. All right. Now you got a ton of inputs and outputs on this thing. Okay, phase out, signal out. You're just going to use signal out, okay, which you're going to put to a waveform chart, and then you got your amplitude, signal type, and so forth. So the first one, your signal type. So come on over here with your cursor, right click, and you're going to create a control. All right, that'll make the correct type of control that it wants. All right, and that's the signal type. And that's going to be a drop-down menu that's going to allow you to change from sine wave to sawtooth to a straight DC square wave. All right, so that's one. Number two, you want to bring in your frequency. Once again, you can create a control. But unfortunately, it comes in with just a numeric control. So what you can do if it brings in that frequency numerical control, we want to put this on a knob. It's going to be easier for people to use the knob. And you can see I've got an amplitude here that goes from 0 to 10. So you can if you have something, you can always right click on it and do something called replace. So I guess I can't do it in there, but I can come over here on the front panel. I can hit replace, and I can replace it with anything. So I'm going to come down here and just replace it with a knob. That's frequency 0 to 10. So we'll just bring that frequency there. Hey, we're trying to figure out how to change how many little tick marks are here. I mean, it's not a big thing. I went through the properties. I looked everywhere. I finally found out that the only way I could do it was to go and resize the knob a little bit bigger. And then once you're a little bit bigger, there's enough room to put them all. And then when you resize it back to smaller, it keeps the 0 through 10. So that's, I guess, some little esoteric trick. I don't know why it works that way, but to change it, you just expand it, come back, and now you can have 0 to 10 on your knobs. All these knobs, we want them to be double precision so that they can give any value between 0 and 10. This DC offset should be between -5 and 5. The square wave duty, which is the percentage of time the square wave is on, that should be between 0 and 100. All right, so let's look at the panel here. Now, I want to run this first and just show you what this disabled thing over here does. Okay, there's a signal type. The signal type is going to be an integer depending on what type of wave you have. Wave type number 2 on this basic function generator happens to be the square wave. All right, but just let me run this and just show you what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to run this, and right now we're on a sine wave, but it doesn't have any amplitude and it doesn't have any frequency. Now it does. So it just keeps pouring more and more data in here, and you see that's happening. So notice that this square wave duty down here is grayed out and disabled. I can't do it. It's grayed out. Now what happens if I change this to a square wave? Now this is something I can use. Okay, so the duty cycle, when you're at 70%, it means it's high 70% of the time and low 30% of the time. 100%, it's on all the time. This DC offset up here will change the upper limit. Okay, amplitude, that can change things as well. All right, so but anyway, if you change off a square wave to something else, notice this grays out. Okay, now to be able to cause a control or an indicator to gray out or perhaps even disappear, we need to create something called a property node. All right, so to create a property node, we're going to right click on this DC offset, and you're going to create a property node. Now there's all kinds of properties you can have, but I want to go to where I can disable the knob. So I'm going to click disable, and then you bring this in here. Now right now it's set up, because it's a knob, it's set up to give an output. But we want to change this so that we can use this this thing to actually read a value. So I want it to act like an indicator. So I'm going to right click, and we're going to change to right, because it's right here. Not change to right. Okay, so I change that to right, so now the input is on the left side, and that's what I have up here. So what I do is just take my signal type, and that's going to go into this equal sign. I should have a visible item, but equals pretty self-explanatory. So if you're equal to 2, then that means your signal type is a square wave. So you're going to get a true. When you have a true, the select is going to take 0, and when you put a 0 into a disable, that means it is not going to be disabled. It's going to be enabled. And you should put this little thing up in here. And remember how you do that. You can double click and you can start typing away, and you can put things and you can resize them to however you want. So you should put a little key on your VI in the block diagram. which tells you. So we're going to put a 2 in if it's not, if the signal type is not 2, which means it's not a square wave, then we're going to have a false get sent through, and when you send a 2, it's not only going to be disabled, but it's going to be disabled in gray. All right, so that's something new. So now you know how to get the basic function generator, you know how to get a property node, and those are really handy for doing stuff. So good luck with this, and have fun with tutorial 7.3. I'm just going to close this out. Let's hit a don't save, and let's go to tutorial 7.4. All right, 7.4, and I've got it right down here. We're going to contrast a waveform chart and a waveform graph. Okay, so all we're going to do is create a little while loop, and I should have while loop up here. And we're going to have a pre-existing array, which we've learned in our last movie. So remember, to create an array out in the front panel, we go to Array, we bring in an array, but an array is just a container, so you now have to bring in what do you want to put in the array, and we want to put numerical control, so we drag that in there, and then you just drag this to whatever size. Put the data that you want into this array, 2, 4, 4, 2. Okay, you want this to be around for next time. Make sure that you select the whole array. Okay, that's the whole array. You right click, and remember there is a data operation here, make current values default. By doing that, next I can close this thing. I'll save it. I'll open it back up, and you know that our data should reappear. Tutorial 7.4 just went to the top. See that? That way you don't have to type it in when your instructor comes around to check your VI. Your instructor says, hey, I only have about 2 seconds to check this VI. He or she doesn't have time for you to type all that in. You have it ready for he or she when they get there. All right, waveform chart, waveform graph. Okay, let's right click over here. There's graphs, so we've done waveform chart. Right next to it is waveform graph. All right, so there's waveform graph. We don't need the plot. We're only going to just put one thing on there. So you can right click. In this case, you don't need a plot legend. All right, I'm just going to get rid of that because we don't need it. So put those two in a while loop. There should be a stop button someplace on this front panel. And here it is. So you take that data, and let's run this to see what happens. It plots the data. Now, what the waveform graph does is it just plots the most recent data, whereas the waveform chart just keeps stacking more and more data onto this graph. Okay, so you can just put these two, just take a look at what it does. But we're just taking an array, and the graph just uses the most recent run, whereas the chart just keeps stacking up more and more and more data. All right, that's all that there is to this one. And we'll don't save. Okay, let's move on to tutorial 7.5. All right, this is going to be a little bit more interesting. We're going to have an array that you're going to build, and then that's going to be our x, and then we're going to have a slope and an intercept that the user can choose. And so really what we're doing is taking the x value, multiplying by slope, adding a y-intercept, and really this is y equals mx plus b. We're going to bundle that together because we're going to use this thing called an xy graph. So I'm just going to right click and just show you it's in graphs, and you want an XY graph right here. This is like a scatter graph in Excel. Okay, so if you're plotting out XY data, you really want to use this and not a waveform chart. Waveform charts always put equal X spacing between every point, like a line graph in Excel. You generally do not want that when plotting XY data. All right, but anyway, this bundle is going to take the X and the Y, put them together, and then be able to send it in the proper format to the XY graph. The waveform chart just takes individual values and plots them on the graph with equal spacing. So notice I used X values that were not equally spacing. From 1 to 2 is equal spacing to itself. Then we have a big jump 5, then 6, 7. So let's run this just one time. And the XY graph, it has an intercept of 3 and a slope of 2. This waveform chart, which also should be a straight line, is not, because what does it do? It takes the 5 data points and plots them with equal space between them. Okay? Notice it just labels it. I have point 0, I've got point 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay? Here you can see on the XY that we actually have X values. If you don't like all the minor grid lines in there, you can right click on this graph and we can go to properties. And to get rid of those, we're going to look at display. It's not there. Appearance, not there. Scales, here it is, scales. So grid style. So major grid and minor grid. If you don't like minor grids, there's no turning them off. But the best you can do is if it's a black background, you can click on this color thing and say, let's put minor grids to black. So they're gone. Okay, so that gets rid of at least the horizontal ones. To get the vertical ones off, I should have done it at the same time. That was the time axis. We can do this drop down. We can go to the amplitude, and I can say, nah, I don't want those either. Okay, and now you have a nice looking graph. The minor grid lines are still there, but they're black. Black on black, you don't even get to see it. 7.5 is all done, folks. Let's go to 7.6. Here's tutorial 7.6. It's an XY graph. And let's look at the block diagram for a second. Anything new here? We have an X array. We're going to make a Y array. Then we're going to reverse the array order. And we're going to rebundle that. So we're going to have XY data. And then we're going to have X with the Y values in reverse order. We have to bundle each XY pack, and then we have to build an array, because if you want to send 2 sets of XY data, each has to be part of a bundled array. So this is how you have to do it, folks. I didn't make up the rules. But where do you find these array functions? You right click, you go into array, and there's reverse array is in here. Okay, there's that one. Remember, always use visible items, especially with things that aren't obvious. Build array, that's in here. This is kind of like, there used to be a place in the mall called Build-A-Bear, when my daughter was young. Maybe we can make a place build an array. I mean, you can come in and bring your child and you can actually build an array. Whoa. So there you go. Now, the array, if you want to make it build, you use this drop down so you can add more and more elements to your array. All right. Remember, right click visible items, label, build array. All right, so let's just get rid of those and let's see what this looks like when we run it. Okay. So I run this and look at this. I got Y1, which is the original data, and then I've got the inversed order. Okay, so it looks a little bit different. Now, how do I get all these different line types? You go up here to the legend and you right click and you can change quickly color, line style, line width, all those nice things. So make it pretty. Just remember, red is one of my favorite colors. So if you want a good grade, you're going to use red. 7.6 is in the bank. All right, don't save that. We are all the way up to an instructor problem 1. Okay, this is going to be fun. We're going to revisit your old instructor 2.2 problem. So I'm going to open it up. Come on, 2.2. So here's my 2.2 from before. All right. Now what I want to do is I don't want to confuse the users and they're going to say, oh, there's change due or money. I mean, we can run this, but we buy something and it says, well, I got to run it in continuous mode. Change due $1. They're getting confused. Like, what the heck? Money, additional money needed 0? All right, so what we want to do is only have one indicator here that gives either the change or the additional money. So this is going to be our first step. We're going to take the change due, okay, and put it right on top of the additional money needed. Now you're saying, how does that make anything better? Okay, well, it doesn't yet. But as you recall, we can create these things called property nodes. Okay, so I'm going to tile left, right a little bit. Whoops, let me put that back on. Hold on. Come back up. Okay, sorry. All right, so I just want to bring this here. I don't want to show you the whole VI, although you probably have it by now. But let's just come over here. So you have this change due. Okay, that's what I want to focus on. And I'm going to right click on this and we can create a property node. Now there's all kinds of property nodes. We're not going to use enable or disable, but we're going to use visible. So if you come up here and you're going to put visible, okay. Now right now it's acting like a control. We want it to be more like an indicator. So I'm going to change this to a right. Okay. If I put a 0 into this, it will make this invisible. Okay, I'm going to in fact right click. I'm going to create a control. Okay, so it's actually, I'm sorry, it's a Boolean, although you could probably put a 0 or 1 into that. In fact, let's see if I could put that. Anyway, let's run this. So if right now it's 0, so it's not visible. If I hit visible, well, I got to hit this in continuous mode. All right, if I hit visible, which is right now, you'll notice that the change due is superimposed on top. So if I make this 0, then the additional money needed is all that's seen, because when we put a false in here, make visible 0, 0 visible or false visible means you don't see it. Okay? So true means you see it. Okay? So what I want you to do is create a new VI called instructor 7.1. So you would just use this and do save as. I can't because I'm running it right now. But you're going to do a save as. You're going to save your old 2.2 as instructor 7.1. You're going to make some property nodes and feed in the proper thing that will make either the additional money or the change due visible, but never both of them. I know you can do it, folks. I have full confidence in you. So I'm going to close that out. We're going to say don't save. All right, that brings us to 7.2. Hey, this is value added that's not in the book. All right, so these videos are just like golden, okay? Well, at least I think so. Probably because I'm biased, I'm the one who made them. All right, where were you? Oh, look at this. A traffic light. This is what you're going to do in 7.1. Look at this. Green's at the bottom. It's going to stay green for only 6 seconds. It's going to stay yellow for 3, and then red for 6. If I was just running this in one-time mode, that's it. You can run it in continuous mode and it'll continually do this. But remember, red is on the top in the United States, yellow's in the middle and green is at the bottom. That's the spatial relationship I want you to have. Now, how do I get this thing to look like a street, a traffic light? Remember, right click, you got decorations, so either use a box or lines, so you make it look good. Now, these LEDs, remember, those are just Boolean rounds. Okay, I just made them bigger. All right, so I'm just going to try to come in here. All right, so you make them a proper size. Now, you only want one of them to be green. So you can right click in here and you go to properties, and you got an on color and an off color. So if this was going to be the red one, you'd choose a nice, red color, and off you want black. Okay, so make sure that you use on a color and off black. All right, so that's that part. Okay, now I'm going to show you something on the tile left, right. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to spoon feed you. Okay, so please get your bib on, and we'll do some yum, yum, yum in the tum, tum, tum. That's actually a little song I used to sing to my daughter when she wouldn't eat as a little infant. It went something like that. Oh, you don't want to hear this song. But anyway, we're going to use something called a flat sequence. Look, it looks like movie film, doesn't it? Now, what a flat sequence does is it will do these frames in order. Okay? If you didn't have the flat sequence, Labview would decide what would get executed when. And it does that by whenever all the inputs of a function or operation are available, it'll immediately do that operation. If we want to have more intimate control over how a program is executed, and you may find this very helpful in your final project where you're creating a robot and you want to do this, then this, then this, you might want to look at a flat sequence. So where do we find flat sequences? Well, right click, you're going to go to structures, same place you find for loops and while loops, and you come down here, and lo and behold, we got the flat sequence. So you come in here, you drag, you get a flat sequence. All right, but you only get one frame. What? Well, you right click, and it says auto grow. What's auto grow? But anyway, I don't know what auto grow is. What if I don't do auto grow? What if I do auto grow? Okay, let's see, let's do this. Auto grow, I don't know, maybe. I'll keep auto grow on, but I'm going to click on the edge, and I'm just going to add a frame after. Okay, and you can do again. You can right click, go on the edge, add a frame after. So you're going to need 3 frames. Just make these a little bit bigger. Whoops, maybe this is what I want to make them about the same. Okay. All right, I'm going to right click up on the top, visible item, flat sequence structure, so you know what it is. All right, you're going to create 3 LEDs. There's the LEDs, but you're going to need those LEDs in each of these 3 frames. Now, we could go up here and try to wire all this, but we'd have so many wires, it would get really messy. So when you want to use something more than once, what you can do is you can right click on it. So we want to use the red north south more than one. We can create what's called a local variable. Okay, now this is going to act just like the original indicator right here, but we get to use another copy of it. So as you can see, I've got these different ones. I've got one for the red, the yellow, and the green. Now these true or falses, all I did was right click on that, and I went and created a constant. Okay, now if it starts as true, you can click on it and make it false. True, false. Okay, true, and then you got to get the finger again. Well, look at that. Labview's giving us the finger. Okay. It's just an index finger, so it's not disrespectful. That's okay. All right, so you just jam those things in here in this sequence. So the wait, so 6,000 milliseconds. You got 6 seconds for your green, 3 seconds for your yellow, and 6 for your red. And when you're running this, you're still going to think this 6 seconds for red is too long. All right. That's a flat sequence. Cool. Whoops. All right, I'm just going to close this down. So what's left for you that's not completely spoon-fed? Well, let's go to instructor 7.3. So now your traffic light has to control an intersection, east, west, and north, south. So I'm going to run this in continuous mode. And I'm going to point out how your thing must work. First of all, there should always be a 2-second overlay where both of them are red. So if this one's green, you never want both of them green ever. Then you have yellow. People should be cautious. And why didn't we change that initially to green? Because you know people are running red lights. Okay? That's why there's red light cameras. But this is, now look, we give both sides a red light for 2 seconds. Okay? So you got a 6-second green, a 3-second yellow, the red 2-second overlay, and then 6 seconds, 3 seconds, and 6 seconds. Okay? So actually, once you get a red light, it should be red for 8 seconds. Okay? 2 seconds of the overlap and 6 seconds while the other one goes. Is that right? No, it's actually longer than that. It's going to be 2 seconds on the overlay and then 3 plus 6. So it's going to be 11 seconds in total. But I think you knew what I meant. All right, so you're going to have to create a flat panel with more little frames. I know you can do it. Please make me proud, and I'll sing you yum, yum, yum in the tum, tum, tum. Hey, I'll see you next time when we get into Chapter 9 and get into some cool programming and start getting you ready for the last tutorials so that you'll be ready to get your LabView kit pretty soon and win the title. We'll see you next time. John Waddick signing out.